That was from the 2014 plan.
That was what?
From the 2014 plan, so it's carried over, but we'll talk more about it in the meeting.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready.
Okay, sounds good. I will go and call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council. Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Time is 4:35 p.m. This is a work session with one topic on the agenda, that is to discuss the draft comprehensive plan update. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to whoever's going to be presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we actually have Britta with AML here, who has provided some of the documentation and worked really hard on this draft plan. I should say some of the documentation in the laydown. Sorry, I didn't complete that sentence. And so I will turn it over to her to introduce herself and take the discussion away. Thank you, Britta.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and thank you, members of the council, for allowing me to join you this afternoon for this work session. If all right with folks, I just want to review the materials that were shared in this packet, because that I think will be a useful guide to our conversation today. Included in this packet is the most updated version of the comp plan update. That's a Word document. Also, our comment tracker. So we received feedback from the Planning Commission as well as Heidi and her staff. And it shows how we have addressed those comments, concerns, or questions. And then also created with my colleague Danielle Meeker and myself is a reviewer guide. And so some questions and considerations that have come up that are we feel the role of the council to address with input. And we have created that in a separate document to hopefully help guide today's discussion. Those are just elements that we feel are worthy of your consideration to inform the comp plan update. I am sharing my screen now. I just want to confirm that folks can see the Excel spreadsheet that I have. And if all right with you all right with you, Mr. Mayor, I would just go through these initial comments that we received and the revisions that were made. Is that all right with you?
Yep, sounds good, Britta.
Okay, great. And so again, this has been shared with you for your reference, and I will just go through kind of by line item. So we removed the term recommendations. So we now call these goals and action items, and that's just clarity of language and consistency of language throughout the plan. Recommendations is perhaps too general of a term, but also it is good for our comprehensive plan to have consistency throughout. So goals and action items are how we refer to tasks identified in the plan. We also made sure that the implementation table specified short, mid, and long-term timeframes. That way the implementation table is clear to the reader. And then the community services section, we mostly just did these kind of line item edits as reference. And then what you see here in column E, we incorporated into our reviewer guide. So we will go, I will save that comment for when we look at the reviewer guide. Again, continued in community services, some line item edits that we documented and made those edits. For housing, so we received feedback from a planning commissioner that the housing stock does not meet, or they do not believe the housing stock meets the needs of the current population. We elevated that to the guide for council to review. And then we have some formatting to make things consistent with our timeframe that was previously mentioned, as well as some line item edits, a couple of which we have elevated to the review guide. The phrase economic gardening has been revised for clarity to reduce confusion, but also to focus in on the intent of that action from the 2014 comprehensive plan. And then the voluntary service area annexation, we've also elevated that to the review guide for council. Scrolling a little bit further down, housing, of course, is a significant issue. At the recommendation of Heidi, housing is its own pillar for this comprehensive plan update. So we have some action items that we elevated to review for the council. And that's housing strategy and seasonal housing development. So we can discuss that as we review the guide. And then scrolling a bit further down, we have a couple elements from the resiliency section, the resiliency pillar of the plan that we also elevated to review for the council. And so we can dive into that. The goals and action table. I guess I just want to note that when we are looking at these edits, and it's highlighted in the review guide for the council, that we need to be conscious of what is in the locus of control of the city of Seldovia. And so looking at goals, what can the city do and what is within the city's jurisdiction to do. So while that, I think I just wanted to share that framing when we are looking at things that can be, that we want to see achieved. This is the city's comprehensive plan. And so ultimately, what can the city be responsible for should be kind of our guiding light in terms of how we phrase and frame our goals and action items. So moving into the zoning and land use and design guidelines, these have all been elevated to our review guide for the council. We got quite a bit of feedback from planning commission members. We have some goals like AMHS ferry service that the city can advocate for, but the city is not taking on AMHS ferry service, so something to keep as we go down to further goals and action table. These incentives for energy efficiency as well as land use compatibility. Who is the ultimate responsible entity?
Yeah, we're having some connectivity issues here. We lost her on our end.
Yeah, we've lost Britta on our end as well. I think it was cutting in and out there. Let's see if she can come back. Britta, are you there?
Yeah, we got
Sorry,
you.
folks. I'm back. I'm sorry. Apologize. I don't know what cut me off there, but I am back.
Okay. Yeah. Can you still hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're good to go ahead and continue on.
Okay. I guess I just want to take through the mayor a moment. Do folks have any questions on how to read the comment tracker?
Britta, if I may, Mr. Mayor, if it makes sense, I could do just a quick high level overview of the changes in the plan itself, kind of like we did with the planning commission, if that makes sense, before we jump into some more of the overall conversation pieces. What do you think about that, Britta?
I would welcome that. Yeah.
Okay. So if we can either, yeah, that'll work. You should have the plan in your guys' packet. We don't necessarily we won't necessarily screen share because it's 54 pages, and we'll just kind of do a high level. So that for those that can see it, and I apologize, Councilmember Rojas, because I know that's a challenge where you're at, but just to give some ideas of what's happened from the 2014 plan to this plan. You guys know we put out a survey. We did receive 5 public comments back from that. A community event was held. with 25 members in attendance. We received a lot of feedback from that. And then a planning commission meeting was held at the beginning of August where they were asked to do a initial review of the draft. Those comments have been incorporated into the plan, or some of them have. Some of them will be questions to you guys tonight. I myself have also gone through it multiple times and provided a few questions and suggestions for changes based on my knowledge and insight from working with the city and the council. So that's a more high level piece to it. Some of the basic changes are, because you have to remember that we're still using the 2014 information, but updating it to current standards. So a lot of this language in here is still from that plan. Some things that were changed is instead of calling the overarching sections elements, they're now pillars. There was the inclusion of the sixth pillar, that's housing. So, and then the community and human resources pillar is now community and social resources. And the environmental pillar is now resilience. So you'll see here on page, let's see, 6 under introduction, there's economy, land use, transportation, housing, community and social resources, and resilience as our 6 pillar areas that we're looking at. And then under the pillars, there's multiple goals, and each goal has multiple action items and an implementation, suggested implementation timeline for accomplishing those action items.
Hey Heidi, real quick, are you just kind of speaking freely? Are you following the handout, or what are you on a certain page, or?
I am speaking freely, but
Okay.
I'm on page 6 to show you an overview of the introduction with the pillars.
Yep, gotcha.
So, but just kind of giving a snapshot overview, and I'll provide page numbers as it's applicable. So you'll see the timeline on page 7. And then if you turn to the following page, you'll see this implementation framework. Vision, pillars, and strategic direction was a little bit in the previous plan. The implementation principles and implementation timeline are new. And those seem like excellent guidelines to move forward. The community context was updated, and it relates back to the 2013 snapshot. The shaped by the past was removed. That was a really long multi-page. I can't remember at the top of my head how many pages it was. It was like 10 pages. And that might be brought back as an appendices. But for right now, just getting to the meat of where we are as a community, and a couple of statistics to pull out there. And a few of these have been addressed, but you'll see when you have a chance to read it, if you haven't yet, that we talk about a modest population decline in recent decades. That combined with the greater Seldovia area, Seldovia has 434 people in the 2020 census. We have a share, the share of school-aged youth has diminished. It's about 15% of the area's residents are younger than 18 years, and that is smaller than the state's average. The community, it talks about in a few places, the community has a lower proportion of children and young adults compared to larger cities, and that we also have a notably higher proportion of seniors age 64 and older at 28%. And the Alaska average is 16% for a community. So not as many youth, more elders in our community. It also talks about that the Seldovia's population is small, aging, and relatively homogeneous, with a close-knit character shaped by both its Alaska Native roots and its settler history. Seldovia's economy is modest in scale and highly seasonal, characterized by fishing tourism and a mix of self-employment and retirement income. The current year-round population supports only a small local labor force. It did give recent estimates to indicate, and we talked about those. I didn't get a chance to check in with Britta if those got updated, but certainly there's a talk about, limited employment, and then as well as that our housing our year-round housing units are about 40% occupant and at 40% occupancy. And that is something that actually City Clerk Diamond and myself went through and did a hand-by-hand count. And it was pretty accurate. So that's in there. And then we talk about, multiple seasonal jobs or small businesses that the individuals have to work that are here, that there's a significant number of residents or retirees whose pension or investment income supports the community year round. Income levels, again, in Seldovia are moderate and roughly on par with or slightly above regional averages, but earnings, again, being seasonal. The key economic drivers include commercial fishing, tourism, hospitality, transportation services. That means ferry, harbor, air, local government, education, and construction projects. Back again to there's a high rate of self-employment and micro enterprise. Residents operate charter boats, art galleries, garden landscaping services, lodges, and other small businesses that cater to tourists and locals. And Seldovia's economic development is constrained by high transportation costs, a limited year-round market, and infrastructure challenges. But the quality of life and natural beauty continue to attract retirees, telecommuters, and entrepreneurs who form the background of the town's economy. And I know that was really important to the city council to discuss that there are a lot of challenges with living and working here in terms of costs. So really worth a read here. That doesn't necessarily need to be the focus of today's conversation, especially while we have Britta here, but it does give a good background. And if you guys have any input that if you haven't had a chance to read through it, because I know it came out just today, please provide that back by October 14th, and we'll make sure that it gets incorporated into the final draft. Again, talking about housing, there's a whole section just on housing. There was in the previous plan as well. And that there's that note in there, and Britta will talk about that more in questions to council about there being enough housing stock for the community. I don't have that right in front of me, but I know she has that marked, though, that language. If we move on, there used to be past the housing section, there used to be or there is a community vision still in here. And that was previously 2014 for 20 years. That's been updated to 2025 to 2045 with that community vision. And then it follows with the community voices lead to strategic pillars. And this is just kind of talking about how those discussions, especially at that community meeting, have really led into the update and changes in this plan. And you'll see under plan elements, those goal areas. There's a nice table that lists out the goals and the actions by each goal, and then it goes a little bit more in depth. And that probably will be the majority of the focus for the rest of this conversation, is to really talk about these goals and actions, what still does and doesn't make sense. I realize again that this is the first time that you guys are putting your eyes on this, and that there are questions from the Planning Commission, and maybe a few from myself as well, that Britta will go into with you guys. And not expecting you to all have answers tonight, but definitely, if you have a chance, please review and think through and get those comments back to us by the 14th. And with that, I will turn it back over to Britta, except we lost her. So maybe I won't turn it back over to Britta. Hopefully she comes back. Do you guys have any questions before we dive into some more conversation about the actual action plan goals and actions? No? Okay. So in your packet, what Britta was referring to on page 57 was a guide of changes that have been made so far. And I don't think it covers some of those bigger high level ones that I just went over, but some of the questions on the draft plan that they've received.
And the packet, hey Heidi, the packet number is the number on the right-hand side or the middle? I'm assuming the right-hand side.
Right-hand side, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that.
It's all right. You said 57?
57. Yep. And that's where Britta was. Just she went through some of the changes, discussing some of the changes that happened throughout the plan, like removing the word recommendations, including the implementation timeline. That was actually my question, is that there was an implementation table in the back, and there was an implementation timeline in the front, and making sure that they align, and now they do. The changes for community services that she discussed. Continuing on through some of the other changes that have been, or questions that have been asked. You'll see the ones that have information in the far right column are the ones that are going to come back to you guys. Do we see any attendees yet, Liz? It's hard to see from here. Oh, maybe she's trying to call in. Yeah. Britta, is that you? We do have somebody calling in, so we'll see if that's her real quick.
Hello, I apologize for the inconvenience. This is Britta calling in. Thank you for your patience. Heidi, I did hear the last component of your review, ending with the comment tracker.
Yep, we were waiting for you, and so I was just showing them in the packet where that information is that you were discussing. And that the questions that you have to pose to the council are going to be on that right-hand side. And then I'm guessing you're going to go into the next document, but I will turn that over to you if you're ready.
Yes, I apologize to folks. I guess this underlines for Alaska Municipal League the need for robust broadband infrastructure. My connection kept cutting out, so I rerouted via the phone line. I'm not able to share my screen at this time, but I would like to walk you all through the reviewer guide, which is a Word document also included in your packet for today's work session. And while these questions, some are general and some are very subject matter specific, that I would like to acknowledge that today is not the only time you'll be able to think and give feedback on these questions. My colleague Danielle and I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that these are questions that we feel needed to be elevated to the council in order to proceed with the next version of the draft comprehensive plan update. So looking at the reviewer guide, page 1, the general questions elevated that we wanted to elevate to this reviewer guide. The first one is about the kind of qualitative assessment of whether housing stock meets the needs of the current population. And I guess I want to say it is up to you all whether we talk about these specifically today or if we review this reviewer guide, and I leave with you all, and perhaps Heidi, we can work on a timeline for getting written feedback from council members.
Through the mayor real quick, if you don't mind, we did discuss having those back by October 14th, if that works for you, Britta. If not, we can shoot for a quicker date.
That does work. Thank you, Heidi.
And then also for the council through the mayor, this is on page 63 of your packet. The questions are.
So I have a question. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we're probably not going to have enough time to get into it, especially having not read the whole document. But I look at like the first question there, Planning Commission comment. I don't think the statement that our housing stock meets the needs of the current population is true. Well, I guess I got to understand the full context to that, because I on one hand would disagree with that statement, but I probably need to look more into this to understand what type of housing we're talking about. Is this going back to the thing I discussed before? Are we looking for subsidized housing, affordable housing? And again, affordable is a big difference in depending on your income, what your income is. affordable runs a broad gamut for housing. So I want to make sure that it's not just one group driving that statement.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may, this actually, in the very beginning, one of my questions, I think some of this stuff does need a little discussion in the room because otherwise we're kind of asking but don't have any feedback, had to do with when it said what the median home price is in Seldovia. And it did mention that that can change but it said it often, it changed more like when like the higher priced homes would be selling. But at least from what I have seen since I've been here, because it said that 195,000, I think, was the median home price. I don't feel like I've really seen anything that price or lower that's an actual home, not a piece of land, for sale. So that tied into this question to my mind of like who are we looking at when we're saying, because there could be things available, raw land, houses, things, but it's kind of, I think we have things all over the place. And at least since I've been here, it's definitely higher. Like I would have, median price was like 300, 350 or 4.
Again, to keep this in context, look what's happened in home. I was just on Homer's the other day, and it's crazy. The prices in Homer. Anchorage is even crazier. I mean, you got to. So I want to make sure that this is not a problem that is specific to Seldovia. This is generally South Central wide. Seward off the charts, completely off the charts. So I mean, that's all I want to make sure is that we don't just throw this blanket statement in there. And I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there's a lot more preface to this, but I want to make sure, like Britta's saying, that there's a number of things that probably need to be discussed, and they probably were discussed in at a multitude of levels, depending on who attended those meetings.
Through the mayor, if I may as well, I just wanted to point out, sorry, Britta, I jumped over you.
Oh, please go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that the statistics did come from the census and the Bureau of Labor Statistics and things, and have been updated through AML to an extent, as well as some of that language remaining. So that's where we're kind of at, is trying to clean it up. The other thing I was going to say is that one of the action plans put in here was a housing needs assessment, which is on your guys' CIP. So I don't know if Britta has suggestions, but certainly maybe the language could be something to the tune of needing to evaluate if the housing stock meets the needs of the current population. Just throwing that out as a suggestion, but I will turn it back over to Britta.
Thank you, Heidi. Through the mayor, I wanted to point out that we do not need to include qualitative language in the plan that states whether housing needs are met or not. That is not an assessment that needs to be made in this plan. As echoing Heidi's recommendation, that could be an action item in this plan to have a housing needs assessment. Particularly if it's also in the city's CIP, recognizing that there's a diversity of perspectives, and that having housing needs met is certainly open for interpretation. So should we keep language that states whether housing needs are met or not? I think that's too broad of a statement. I think that a member of the public might read that and feel like their experience isn't reflected in this document, but by no means is it necessary to make that overall assessment whether housing needs are met or not in this plan. The data may not match folks' lived experience, but it is important to reference the American Community Survey, the census, the KPB's Bureau of Labor and Statistics. That's important when we are determining or communicating the housing needs, rather. But I would echo Heidi's suggestion that a general assessment of whether housing needs are met or not does not need to be included in this section, nor do I feel like removing that would take away the importance of having housing as its own standalone pillar of this comprehensive plan update.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I think much better that you address it as an action item to be further vetted, right? Because it's not something that we've done in a long time, and or if ever, a true deep study on that. So yeah, I think that's a much better approach to kind of make sure that all sides' opinions and or feelings on that matter are being addressed.
So Ruth and Mayor, are there any other thoughts or feedback on our first question in the reviewer guide? Hearing none, I am going to proceed in the reviewer guide document. So the reviewer guide general questions 2 through 5, I would say are things to keep in mind as you review the comp plan in its current form, but perhaps are not discussions that we can have as a group today if folks have not reviewed the plan. So I guess I just want to recognize that. Same with question number 6, the need for accountability, or in order for there to be accountability in this plan, should there be specific individuals named as responsible for goals and actions? I would like to suggest for the council to review that having specific people listed in the comprehensive plan perhaps doesn't give the needed flexibility or doesn't transfer roles or responsibilities should folks change jobs. And so I would guide you away from naming specific individuals as responsible for goals. Perhaps job titles, specifically within the city, might be prudent, but the more rigid of a plan of those responsibilities, the less flexibility there is in plan delivery. So that would be my 2 cents there for your consideration. And that also
just
goes
real quick,
to,
Britta,
oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Yes,
no, I was going to say, I think just while you're on that topic, I think that's a good approach. I would share your feelings on that one, that would, rather than naming individuals, we look at job responsibilities or something along those lines. So you're not looking at someone's name that's, there for 10 years and we're, 4 names down the list or something, just to keep it more generalized on that one.
Thank you. Through the mayor, any other thoughts or comments on plan review guide number 6?
Through the mayor,
Excellent.
I do have one, just to think about as you're going through this document and using these questions kind of as a guide, is and thinking about, yes, wanting to have some accountability, but I believe that the direction of the council as we move through this plan and we have the CIP and we develop, some of these other plans that we're working on in the future, transportation plan and a housing needs assessment and things like those. This is like an overarching plan, and that while it could be prudent to have some duties and responsibilities maybe listed in the plan, I do think that this is the guide, and that there'll be, if administration and council and everybody's working together, the hope would then be that those plans, and the back of this plan does reference those other family of plans, would help provide that further guidance and those guidelines as well as when council talks about their priorities and council champions. And I think there are other times. So that's just something to consider, that as we grow up as a city and we have more of these informed planning documents and are cross checking them and verifying and moving through them, that hopefully that helps secure some of that accountability in of itself as well.
Yeah, Heidi, I think that's also a good approach. I think there's a number of things, and I was thinking about that. There was a number of things that, in 2014 that we probably didn't have, that we weren't tools that we weren't using, that we, and again, I'd have to go back and look at the exact plan to see if those action items or any of those goals were in there, such as a CIP and stuff like that. And then, yeah, again, not having specific champions, et cetera, but having more individual action items named. And then, that's helpful for us to grade ourselves in the future, how we're doing on progress for a broad plan, which this is, without going into, relatively specific items, or not, yeah, I guess specific descriptors on some of these things.
Through the mayor, looking at reviewer guide question 7, I think this is a similar topic, but I guess I urge the council to consider what is in the scope of control of the city, and that identifying partners is an important exercise, but partners are not beholden to this comprehensive plan. And so I would err on the side of caution of not listing specific organizations to complete actions or goals outlined in the plan, but perhaps including in the goal language that city will interact or outreach with example partner in order to complete the comp plan as drafted. So I think, again, that to echo the comments from question number 6, that we don't want a level of specificity that does not give flexibility in plan delivery. And given roles within the city, certainly that is within the jurisdiction of the city of Seldovia, but when we're looking at external partners, that there is a further need for flexibility or adaptability depending on what organizations take on different capacities over the next 10 years.
Yeah, unless anybody has anything else, I am also agreeable to that approach.
Mr. Mayor, I would also agree with that. I think the generalization for our comprehensive plan needs to be just that, generalization and specific in positions of duties and responsibilities, but not specific groups and peoples, just a generic. This is a future a document that we're working towards. So I agree with the ideas and changes that we're speaking of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Thinking along those lines too, I was thinking about, and again, not without being able to read the whole document. I don't know if we had any kind of, if there was any kind of language or anything, Britta, that where you guys maybe look back and, either graded us or, gave us any kind of quick narrative or performance eval on how we've done, with the goals of our original 2014 plan. But I would like to see something too, thinking about, when we're talking about these actions and stuff, about maybe it's a biannual or something, maybe every 2 years or every 3 years, kind of how we do it annually in our CIP plan, how we, we show where we were at, where we've come, and we're moving forward. Maybe we have a 2 year or a 3 year review on our comp plan now. And that was one of the issues, right? How quickly it got outdated from 2014. But make that part of the plan that we have. And again, maybe you guys address that and it's in here, but make that part of the city council, the city manager and city council's mandate that we don't wait, 12 years to go through our plan. Every 2 years or every 3 years, we are looking at this and effectively giving ourselves a grade, right? Of how we're doing. Are we making progress? Are we not? Et cetera, et cetera.
Through the mayor, yes, we do have strategy included in the plan for those accountability mechanisms, both for accountability, but also for transparency. So ongoing monitoring and review is incorporated into the plan. I think it'll be a different page number for you all, but I'm looking at page 47 of the version 5, so 2025 Seldovia Comp Plan Update document. So ongoing monitoring and review. Right now, language states the city will review plan progress annually with a comprehensive 5-year check to evaluate completed projects and their outcome, reprioritize based on new opportunities or challenges, and to adjust timelines or resources accordingly. I also, to speak to your earlier comments, Heidi did a review of the 2014 comp plan and assessed whether the goals, action items, et cetera, in that plan have been achieved or not. In that documentation, I'm sure we can make available to you. That was how we, myself and my colleague Daniel Meeker with the Alaska Municipal League, did our first draft update, was informed by those line item edits made by Heidi. So Heidi, I don't want to speak for you, so I will stop talking for now.
Through the mayor on that, you guys have seen that copy. It's the yellow, green, red, and I can provide it to you again, as well as the Planning Commission did do a review of the comprehensive plan. It was pretty tedious. They've done it twice in the last couple of years, but because they were the different sections that they were focusing on, the first one took, I think, over 6 months, and it was just focused on focus areas, which is something that I should point out that they have been removed or incorporated as action items. So instead of having, if you remember before, it was elements, goals, focus areas, and then implementation recommendations, and those were split out into 4 different categories. This has been streamlined to have the pillars, goals, and then action items for implementation, so that those focuses or those actions recommendations are the same. They're in the same levels, hoping to help prevent that confusion and having to flip back and forth. But not to digress into that, they did a review of the focus areas, and I believe that was in 2022. And I can provide that. And then again, in 2024, they did a review of just the implementation recommendations. So I will make sure that we get those back out to you, as well as the yellow, green, and red copy, so that you can see those comments and edits of what we have accomplished or where we are. The red, green, and yellow, just as a quick overview of the red, is we haven't made any progress. Yellow, we're making some progress. And green, we're doing well on progress. So not to go into that any further, but we do have that, and we do have in the plan that we'll do an annual progress check as well as a comprehensive 5-year check-in, which seems reasonable. And hopefully with this new format, will be more realistic. Hoping.
Thank you for the reminder on the previous work done. Yes, it's coming back to the fog now. So yeah, and annual may be aggressive. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, you know how much we typically can have on our plates from year to year. Some years that may be a little tougher than others, but we'll see if you guys think you can, put something together, and then we can, maybe it's not, not as hard as I'm thinking, but.
Through the mayor, Britta Hamry speaking, if I may, I guess I just want to note that right now the language is that the city will review the plan progress annually. And so while I think how that is actualized does require a little bit more specificity, at least for the language to be included in the plan, that keeping it at the level that the city will review gives some flexibility to make that more feasible to actualize. So not committing the planning commission or the council to conduct a full review annually perhaps can reduce the burden. And we also can talk more, Heidi, with you and your staff about what available tools that are free could make that a reduced burden on an annual basis, should that be the will of the council to keep an annual review in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And yeah, maybe it's as simple as a report card, type update, annually. And then at that 5-year mark, we're looking to, obviously take some or there's recommended actions year over year, et cetera. And you try to correct. And then at the 5-year mark, it's a much more comprehensive discussion. And, what were those actions? What were those updates, required, did they happen, et cetera, et cetera. So no, that's maybe that'll all work out well.
Through the mayor, Britta Hamry speaking again. So our last general question for council consideration in the comp plan reviewer guide. I think this is something to keep in mind, perhaps not for discussion this evening during tonight's work session, is are the timeframes that accompany each action item in the plan accurate? And so that is for your consideration as you read this version of the comp plan update. I would say I would encourage an assessment if anything is perhaps too optimistic, that are things listed as short term that might take more time in order to be achieved, would be where I would err on the side of caution in your review. And we also, Danielle and myself, recognize we don't have lived experience in Seldovia. We have visited your lovely community and thoroughly enjoyed it, but that we do need your perspective on whether the timeframe given for each action item is accurate based on your lived experience expertise.
Hey, Britta, the short, mid, and long, I can't remember. I assume those are defined in terms of period of time, months or years.
Yes, let me pull up that table, Mr. Mayor. So, through the mayor, the implementation timeline, short term, we've defined as 1 to 5 years, midterm, 6 to 10 years, long term, 11 to 20 years. And that is on page 5 of the comp plan update document.
Okay, perfect.
Through the mayor, looking at now the third page of the Seldovia Comp Plan Reviewer Guide. This is where the table starts. So these are questions that are goal or action specific. I guess I defer to the council today if we would like to go through these item by item with our time together. I'm happy to provide more insight. However, I would say it is relatively comprehensive. We have the goal or action as listed in the first column. So this reflects how that goal or action is indicated in the comp plan. We have a description, so language for that goal or action as listed in the comp plan, and then the input requested from the council at this time. Through the mayor, would it be helpful if we did a line by line review of these action items with our time together this evening?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, that might be good to go through those quickly and see what comments we get back here.
If I
Okay.
could just
Thank you so
provide
much.
one caveat to that, through the mayor, just a reminder that these action items are the ones that have had questions so far. They are not all the action items. So
Gotcha.
you're not seeing everything, just the ones that have had questions to this point. So please, when you review, go back and review all of them.
To the mayor, thank you, Heidi. I appreciate that clarification. Just these action items that are in the reviewer guide are action items that we received feedback or comments on from the Planning Commission. And that's why they have been elevated out of the plan for your consideration in this guide. We of course anticipate that when the council reviews this version of the comp plan update, that you will have your own feedback that is not exclusive to these action items, and we would then go through a similar process where we do a comment tracker with your feedback, and then bring back for conversation any action items that have ambiguity that need further review or conversation. So this reviewer guide, looking at goal action E 1.2, that goal or action is to develop fiscal tools that reward local investments, etc. The comment from a planning commissioner was prior discussion and planning commission meetings include commercial business district subcommittee or city council meetings indicated a focus on stable life support systems, water, sewer, was what the city of Seldovia could do to support businesses, and that reducing taxes was not affordable. So the question that Danielle and I have for the council is whether this goal or action should be removed or revised for reflection of what the city should do.
Well, anyone can chime in if they want. I'm fine with leaving that goal and action on there. That's come up a number of times from a number of different council members. The comment about reducing taxes was not affordable. I think that is that's depending on whose eyes you're looking at that from. So zero taxes collected is zero taxes collected. Some tax collected is better than none. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Through the mayor, I agree. I think that we should leave this on there because it keeps it broad. I think it is, as you said, it's something that has been brought up many times. I know it's what's been brought up to myself a lot as a council member. What does the city do to support businesses? What can the city do? And I think we need to leave it broad because even whether it's different eyes or different times, our strategy on what that looks like, whether it's subsidies or tax incentives, is going to look different.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivi.
Yeah, this discussion has happened over and over. I think under the description, it might be broad enough to cover a discussion. I'm a little bit, and I know we had discussions about the probability of reducing taxes, the implications to the city and its tax base were of a concern. So I think having a description there that is a little vague and direct at the same time, meaning that the city is willing to help out businesses, and if through various steps, perhaps is a discussion. But I think there's some wording in there that from years and years of public input, business owner input, how to approach that and get that out to the public has been our worst enemy. Trying to inform people what the city already does and what we do and can do for the business owners. So I'm a little bit concerned about labeling in there, tax rate changes, tax rate base. I'm a little bit concerned about that. But if the rest of the council feels it's okay, is a description that's vague or make it vaguer, a little more broad, I'm okay with that too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Yeah, me personally, I mean, I think that's fairly, yeah. And if property tax is not, it's not in the cards, it's not in the cards. But I think it still should be as part of the description, at least for the discussion. I think that the way that's labeled is fairly. I mean, I don't. Let's see, tax holidays for local purchases. Yeah, I get. So yeah, I mean, there's a number of things in there that are listed. So, I mean, if someone can come up with a better, wording on that, that's fine too. But I think that generally, hits on the high points of some of the discussions we've had. And yeah, that's not an easy one, right? It's that one has been up for much debate, as Vivian said.
It could just be reworded to be broad to somehow describe that it would be within the scope that we can, this, because that's more like what would come up in discussion as ideas. So rather than putting the ideas in the description, just making sure people realize we're not going to try to do things that we don't have the scope or the ability to do as a city. If that makes sense.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and through the mayor, that just, if you don't mind, that brings me to the question of, this was actually my question on E14, which is nurture local businesses, and that's fostering the growth of existing businesses to grow into sustainable employers by offering technical support and shared marketing resources. And maybe that's more focused on being sustainable employers, but I did ask if that was duplicative of number one and just an overall arching theme of wanting to support local businesses. Some other ideas, not just tax incentives that have come up, but that you guys have discussed as a body, as water and sewer utility breaks. I had somebody from the public, a business owner, send me last week a really cool program that Soldotna is doing, a grant program. They offers $7,500 to any business who's going to update their storefront. So I don't know if that makes sense, if it still needs to stay separate for the sustainable employer part, or maybe if it's just an overall arching, exploring how to, partner and provide financial incentives for the success of local businesses in Seldovia. That's probably a mouthful, but that talks about offering grant programs and technical support and shared marketing resources and utility breaks. And there's a variety of ways that the city could do it. Or I guess that would be my question to the council, is if it makes sense to keep those items separate, or to have one focused on taxes and keep it separate with one focused on taxes and one focused on other programs, or to have a combination of the overall support of businesses.
I personally think you could roll that all up into one, pare down the description a little bit. I mean, essentially what you're looking to do is to further business investment in the community, right? As a city, as a council, we want business investment. How we get there, that's debatable, but that's the goal, right? The goal in action is to help our businesses, to get, not necessarily, subsidize them for forever and ever, but having certain programs that are meaningful, that could help foster new business, or reward long-term business, something like that. And that could be in any number of these tools that we're talking about.
I think that sounds great. I agree.
Through the mayor, so I've noted that combining goal E 1.2 and E 1.4, that there is some wordsmithing to do in the combination of these two goals, but that the emphasis is the city has a goal of supporting local businesses and investing in local businesses, not subsidization, but meaningful programs that could help foster new business and reward long-term businesses locally. So I have that in my notes for myself and my colleague Danielle Meeker, but I wanted to make sure that that is accurately reflecting the conversation at hand.
I think you're on track.
Thank you. Through the mayor, looking at our next goal, included in the plan is E 3.5, explore city-run fuel and ice production to better serve the fishing fleet, keep cost competitive, and generate municipal revenue. We've received comment from the Planning Commission. Does the city want to compete with private enterprise? Our question for the council in your review of this comp plan is, should this action be removed or revised?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, this discussion has come up at different times, and even in our last meeting in the last month and a half, the discussion was this topic of reducing fuel costs in Seldovia. And I think what I came out of that meeting with was, how is it with new ownership of the Seldovia Fuel and Lube, how is it the city of Seldovia can partner or have discussions or contribute to possibly helping the Fuel and Lube reduce their purchasing price for fuel and maybe reduce that to the community. So having that discussion, I'm not sure if we can get someplace with that discussion, if having the city somehow backing or being a partner of the Fuel and Lube. I'm not really sure. At different times, I think the city could possibly facilitate another oil gas plant or something, but we have one in town who's doing a great job in contributing to the community. It's just, how can the city of Seldovia facilitate getting better prices to residents and community members? And that's the crux of our issue in the big picture, reducing those costs, inviting the boats that are going by to come into Seldovia. So I guess my question is, how could we move towards helping the Fuel and Lube owners to facilitate just that, starting with a conversation, which I don't know if they have had that or not. That's all for now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Yeah, so in terms of should this action be revised or removed, I'd like to see that action stay. That discussion should be on the forefront for sure in terms of quality of life in the city of Seldovia. And this directly impacts your housing issues. 100% affects what I charge on my rentals is because of the high cost of utilities in Seldovia, primarily fuel. That is a fact. You can ask any landlord in town. Seldovia is not a great place to have rentals. It's a terrible place to have rentals because of the cost of our utilities. So, again, I won't go off the rails here, but I feel very passionate about that one. There's a lot more room than $3 a gallon, 15 miles away. We should be more competitive than that. And no, to answer the question, the city should not generally compete with private enterprise for, non-essential items. But when it comes to essential things, heating your home, and what drives, that more than anything drives our population, drives our workforce. It drives a lot. If you are the one paying the utility bills in this town, you will understand what I mean. And there's not a person on this council that can disagree with me on that.
through the mayor, would it make sense then to keep it, but maybe just broaden it to explore city support of fuel and ice production? If we're talking about our continued partnership with our local businesses in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say you could find a happy medium there and say explore city run slash and or, further support or, partnership or something along those lines. I'm open to other council members' comments as well.
I'm just trying to think of how to reword that, but it hasn't come to me yet. Because I am 100% on board with you there, where we don't want to we're trying to support the local businesses, but it is an essential. And I think when it comes down to kind of my explanation, when people ask for an explanation on, well, what do you mean the utilities are really high? And I just say, when your utilities are more or double what your mortgage payment is, if you own a home, that, and their eyeballs go.
That's my point. My utility
It's-
costs for my buildings are more than my actual rent or mortgage.
Exactly.
So that's hard to swallow.
And so I don't know if there's some way in there of like kind of, I would say, maybe it's not saying fuel sales and marine support, but it's kind of blanketing all of that, whether it's marine and like essentials, all of those things that are essential to being able to live and run a business over here on, exploring how to keep any of those costs competitive and make it livable, for more people. Because yes, there's some of us that we do it, we make do, but it's also that balance of what people's priorities are, and I'd say it's way different than anywhere else. And when I first came here, I'll just never forget the first chamber meeting I sat in, and the first comment was, well, if you're going to run a business in Seldovia, you've got to have a full-time job elsewhere in order to support that business. And that's always stuck with me. And I don't want that to be the way it has to be. Whether you're saying a business or living here, you shouldn't have to work somewhere else and work here in order to live here. You know what I mean? So, and I think a lot of that stems in outside the housing, but in the essentials, what the other things that we need to live here. So I don't know how to blanket that. So then we're not pinpointing exactly, but we all know what those pieces are and what we might have control over.
Through the mayor, again, this is Britta Henry speaking with Alaska Municipal League. I am documenting the council's feedback on this item. I just want to note that we do not need to come up with a perfect wordsmith solution with our time together this evening, and that written or other additional feedback between now and October 14th, I'm sure you will give us enough feedback that we can come up with our best try at encapsulating how you all want to make sure that the city is exploring opportunities and different options to make essential services cost competitive in order to sustain the residents and businesses of Seldovia. So that's, I have been capturing what you all been saying in my notes. And so we will incorporate that feedback and await your review, your written review as well. But I just wanted to share that we do not need to come up with, we do not just have tonight to come up with improved phrasing for this goal.
Perfect. Thanks, Britta, for keeping us on task there.
Through the mayor, that being said, I do welcome any further feedback on goal action item E 3.5. Hearing none,
And again, folks may not have the, something on their mind tonight or ready to share, but if you have more to offer on all of these, that opportunity is there to get these in front of Britta and her team, prior to the deadline of that October 10th or October 14th date.
excellent. Yes, I would say tonight is an opportunity to give feedback, but it's not the exclusive opportunity for the council to give us feedback. If all right with folks, and if all right with you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move us on to goal action L 1.2. Consider annexation requests from adjacent property owners who seek city services, ensuring that annexation is fiscally sustainable and supported by residents. Questions that we would like to bring to the attention of the council are: should this action be revised to include the creation of an outreach plan? Is the timeline of this action short, mid, or long term? I guess, Heidi, I have a question for your perspective from the city. That creation of an outreach plan for a sub item such as this does get into a level of specificity that I want for consideration of, like, how specific do we want to describe the considering of annexation. And so I guess that would be how I would like to frame the discussion tonight, is what level of specificity does this goal action description need in order for there to be clear understanding and plan delivery.
Through the mayor, if you were asking me, I actually kind of like this idea because it does make it actionable. I mean, you can consider annexation requests, but if you're not receiving annexation requests, then there's nothing to consider and there's no way to move forward. But if you're including, consider annexation requests and as well as create an outreach plan, allowing people the opportunity to know that it's there. I don't know what that would look like. Maybe that's putting my foot in my mouth. Maybe that's not a great idea, but I like the idea of having some substance to how to achieve this item. It seems a little bit unachievable because it's citizen initiated and not city initiated. So what are we doing to support this item, or does it belong in here if we're not able to support it?
Yeah, I think Heidi, so I mean, I like the idea of the labeling on L 1.2, the voluntary service area annexation. And then the description, I think that is spot on. I know where you're going at, I think, with the communication plan, because there are a few large parcels that I have in mind where the owner has expressed interest of annexation, would like to be included in the city, just doesn't quite know how to get there. And we've had minimal dialogue, but we haven't quite gotten any substance to get things off the ground and get it rolling. With a formal request, formal plans, anything of that nature to actually, provide the council and or city with enough information to get the ball rolling on that. So again, I mean, it's not a bad, I understand the need for a communication plan. I don't know what that looks like. And if we say it in this, maybe that's fine, but and then I guess that would have to be up to the city administration to figure out what that plan looks like.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would agree that there's, I think it needs to be, the idea of annexation, voluntary annexation is great. The cost of the city and what the person who's asking for the annexation, what their expectations are and what the city can provide may be night and day. So it's an issue that's come to council before, and the cost factor for the city to provide water and sewer was astronomical and not even going to happen. So I'm not sure how, I think it's a good process. It's a good question. I'm not really sure how Seldovia, city of Seldovia can afford to annex another area when we haven't even provided water and sewer to many of our lots in our city limits. It's always been a question to me. I think it's great if somebody wants to voluntarily ask for annexation, but what does it cost to the city? So I'm not sure if it belongs here or if it belongs, which might put us in a position where it's says more to the public than what we what we think we can do. Just a concern I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just to caveat that a little bit. Vivian, I know, like one, for an example, the one property owner has got, he's installing on-site, wastewater systems now, and would be looking more for, water. That I mean, there's a number of ways to do that. I think it has to be a partnership with the landowner, the city, and DEC has to be part of that discussion, right? What they're gonna allow. So, which is gonna ultimately, at the end of the day, drive cost, and then yeah, they're cost sharing arrangements between and or the city's return on investment, and then the property owners contribution. So yeah, it's not one size fits all for sure. Every property is going to be just a little bit different. Um, but yeah, I don't know where we go from here on that one. I think very very general on that one, and then figuring out case by case what we can do.
Through the mayor, if I may suggest that, Heidi, I want to echo what you said, that creating a communication plan makes this action oriented, whereas the action item of consider is pretty qualitative and open for interpretation. May I suggest the development of resources to be made available to the public to navigate annexation requests, or something along those lines, that it seems like there's an opportunity for clear guidance to be made available should one be considering voluntary annexation, and that wouldn't necessarily be committal on behalf of the city, but offer some guidance on how, since it's a citizen-initiated process, how a citizen would go about starting that process should they be interested.
Heidi, I think that was for you, but yeah, I mean, I think that would make sense.
Through the mayor, yes, I agree. If we focused on, because I was just thinking, we've talked about special assessment districts. A communication plan idea is an idea, but it could even just be having some internal policies that we can utilize in having these discussions with individuals if they do bring them forward. So that development of resources that can be provided for the public and the consideration of annexation requests. I that seems like that would be reasonable, and that we can have a few things in our toolbox, or even that we just work with people as we've tried to in the past as they work through this process, because it's not an easy process. But having that, what's the city's role in that? And that could be that we're developing those resources and providing them.
We also may just want to make sure on I think it was voluntary was the voluntary service annex. We may want to highlight or bold the word voluntary there, just to make sure people aren't going off the rails when they read that one.
Through the mayor, duly noted. through the mayor, if I can bring the council's attention to goal L 2.1, financial incentives for waterfront central business district. Description is offer targeted tax incentives such as property or sales tax rebates for businesses that meet criteria like year-round operation, public accessibility, or contribution to the visitor economy. The Planning Commission comment was reference prior discussion on unaffordability. If this is not affordable, should it be in the plan? I think this echoes our conversation around goal E 1.2, the exploring financial incentives for local businesses. Our discussion tonight on that led that we should distinguish what the city can or could do, and that we don't want language that is committal for the city to utilize tax incentives at this level of the plan. But I would like to open for further discussion.
Does this need to be, I mean, I'd be fine with, striking this all together unless there's some targeted reason why I get it, someone brought it up, obviously incentivizing the waterfront central business district because it's our showcase, but does that need to be separated out? I don't know. And again, my same comment before, affordability to me is not really, it's not really a relevant comment in my mind because that's open to interpretation. There's too many factors on what unaffordability means. So I don't really like that word. I'm not a person that just says we can't afford it, we're not going to do it. I'm more solution oriented. So I want to figure out if we can't afford it, why can't we afford it, and what do we got to do to be able to afford it? What are the offsets, et cetera, et cetera. So, but again, I think unless you guys have something else, Heidi, do you know, L 2.1, could we just simply strike that and that's all rolled up under the business incentives in general or business development in general?
Mr. Mayor, I concur. I think that makes sense. This is, if you look at L2.1, this means it's in land. So it's focusing on the development of land in the community, but we're talking about supporting businesses,
Yeah.
which we've already talked about in E1
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Anybody else have any objection, council, to just striking this one and rolling it up underneath the E1? Okay. Yeah, Britta, if you're good with that direction, I think we just plan on striking that one.
Very comfortable with that direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking at the next goal or action, this is commercial use protection. Description is revise zoning or development standards to require a minimum percentage of ground floor space in the waterfront central business district to be devoted to commercial uses while allowing upper floors for residential. The comment we received from the Planning Commission is, what is this trying to accomplish that was not recently discussed in the Central Business District Code rewrite? Our question to the council for your consideration is, should this action be revised or removed?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
for
Yeah.
a little context, if you guys don't remember, in the ordinance that was just recently passed for commercial business district, it did include a gross floor coverage. The secondary uses should not exceed the primary use, and then had parts that would fit in with the comprehensive plan. There was a path forward if they did, but have that language in there, not necessarily top floor, bottom floor, but that the primary purpose should be the overall majority of the gross floor was the intent of that, with secondary being secondary without following some of the additional steps of having it comply with the comprehensive plan and approval of the city manager if it doesn't meet that criteria. So you guys did implement something similar to this.
We did. I didn't necessarily like that language because I don't agree that the primary use should be, I wasn't gonna make a big deal out of it at the time, but that the percentage wise, you can still have the target of your entire business be a smaller footprint, on a square footage basis than what the building's being used for. That's fairly easy to do if you've got a storefront or something like that, but you're in a bigger building where you're living, et cetera, et cetera. Or it's a multi-use building with more than, one or two purposes. But does this actually belong? I mean, this is getting pretty specific. I mean, it would seem to me that that's just part of a normal zoning conversation, right? Does that actually need to be in the comprehensive plan?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the wording in this that got me questioning what we were saying was require a minimum percentage of ground floor space. Our direction, our conversation over and over and over has been emphasis on the business taking priority over secondary living space. Whether or not it belongs in here, and as our city manager said, we did cover the language that covered what the city's been trying to say with the addressing the issue of secondary versus primary. So if we already have the wording in our established with our new language that we got together, I'm okay with this either not being in here because we've already designed it elsewhere, but making sure that it's clear, because there was always that question of, oh, it's 51%. Well, was that really what that was in the books or in the ordinance at some point in time, or is it just old wives' tale? I'm not sure. As long as we remember that our emphasis is with our business district being a business first and a living quarters secondly, if that's the emphasis, that's what we need to make sure it's clear. So if our language that we've accomplished thus far does that, I'm okay with this going away. If not, then we need to restate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Vivian, I know we're running short on time, guys, but I think I agree. I would have no problem going away with that one, especially when you look at L 2.3 underneath of that. That to me is the priority, right? The zoning review and updates. That's kind of a catch-all for all of this. I think L 2.2 is getting way too specific for a comprehensive plan, but L 2.3 certainly encompasses, all of that. I mean, that's what it is. We want to ensure, that our zoning is part of our master plan for our community, and what, that it's matching the development that we see in the future. So yeah, I would be fine with that. And so we're running short. We do have a regular council meeting coming up. How many more of these are there? And Heidi, do you think we need another work session here in a couple weeks to continue this while everyone gets a chance to have read it? I wouldn't be opposed to having another work session, in 2 weeks at the next meeting, kind of the same thing. To just kind of, by then everyone will have had more than enough opportunity to look it over, kind of formulated any more questions, comments, and maybe we could kind of wrap things up and that would get us, a week prior to the deadline there.
Through the mayor. So you're talking about having a work session before the October 14th meeting, because I do want to remind you that October 7th is the election day, and you're looking at some potentially onboarding some new council members, probably at least two new council members, and October 14th being the recertification of that election. So thinking through if the council wants to follow up.
Yeah, do we have an October 6th Monday meeting?
We do not. So we could have a work session that evening. If we could have it earlier in the afternoon, because they will be setting up for elections. Thinking that through, or something next week.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, and I'm open to you guys, rest of the council members too. If anyone's got any questions, thoughts, comments on the need for, another work session after everyone's had time to go through this.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep,
I would-
go ahead.
I would agree that a work session would be a good idea with the council you have on board right now. So it's not a new topic for those newcomers coming in. So I would, if you can fit in another work session, go through this and people have a chance to read it, that'd be great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Yeah, Heidi, why don't we work on a date that works for everyone prior to the 7th of the election on the 7th, and then I think we can fit one in to kind of just give everyone one last opportunity, and if there is a way we could have Britta attend that with us, that'd be fantastic.
Through the mayor, of course.
Good. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I guess we should have maybe had a little more time with us now that we're getting into it and, getting some thoughts and ideas out there tonight, but you never know how fast or slow these are going to go through. But obviously we know this is a lot of time, money, and effort are going to be spent on this update, and we want to make sure we get this right. So we've had way too much argument and discontent in the community over our comprehensive plan and what it means. So we want to get this right this time. So not that it was wrong last time. We want to get it, we want to get some things straightened out going forward. Let's see if everyone's good with that. And again, I apologize for how, long we ran here, but I think we'll have to go ahead and adjourn this. Let me do this. Do we have anyone on the line, Liz, from the audience that wanted to comment tonight?
I'm not seeing anyone online, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure we give everyone that opportunity. So let's do this then. I think we'll go at 6:05 now. Ashley, you gonna need a few minutes?
No, we're good.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and then we'll come back at 6:06 now. Let's give everybody a few minutes here, about 6:15. People can use the restroom, whatever, and then let's get started on time at 6:15 with our regular meeting. That's in about 9 minutes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep.
Yeah, do we have I'm gonna probably take longer than that. I'm at the hospital. I need to do a few things. Do you have a quorum if I don't call in on time?
We do. Yep.
Okay.
We have 4. Yep.
Okay, I'll try to get back to you when I can, a little bit longer than 10 minutes though.
Okay. Yeah, no problem, Vivian.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, with that, Britta, thank you for all of your help navigating this tonight, and we will come together again. Thanks everyone for your comments and input tonight. And with that, we will go ahead and adjourn the work session. And can we stay on this link, Liz?
Yes, you can stay on this link.
Okay, sounds good. We are adjourned, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you, everyone.